Welcome back to another episode of Christian Natural Health. Today, I'm very pleased to have Daniel Harmon with us. Daniel is the creator and showrunner of Tuttle Twins TV Show, an award-winning cartoon that teaches kids about principles of freedom and economics. Tuttle Twins is based on the book series that has sold over 5 million copies. In 2020, Tuttle Twins set a record as the #1 crowdfunded kids show in the world. Daniel is a creative entrepreneur and co-founded Harmon Brothers, a renowned video advertising agency that has driven billions of views and over 700 million in sales. Daniel's also a co-founder of VidAngel and Angel Studios. Welcome, Daniel. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, for sure. So first, before we launch into Tuttle Twins specifically, tell us a little bit of the background of co-founding Angel Studios. When was this? What was the background? Just tell us kind of the story there.
Yeah, it actually started with VidAngel.
Okay.
So it was, man, that was a long time ago. But my brothers and I, we all love movies in our family, and we were all in a stage where we were raising young kids, and so much of what was happening with media online, it was going to streaming, and
Mhm.
so we wanted to create. There were so many great stories coming out of Hollywood that we wanted to share with our kids, but they're loaded with all sorts of content issues,
Yeah.
language, nudity, those types of things, and we wanted to be able to watch them without that stuff in it. So that's kind
Right.
of what VidAngel came out of
Yeah.
originally.
Uh-huh.
And then from there, um, it was uh, it was actually VidAngel. I guess it's a more complicated history than that, but essentially, VidAngel ended up getting sued by Disney,
I was
and
wondering how that was going to work. Okay.
yes,
Uh-huh.
VidAngel ended up getting sued by Disney,
Uh-huh.
and they don't like it when you touch their content in any way. It's essentially VidAngel was an advanced remote that allowed parents to
Right.
skip and mute, right?
Sure.
That's what it
Right.
was.
Right. Yeah.
But they don't like they don't like the
Censorship,
end
right?
user having that, yeah,
Yeah.
quote
Mhm.
unquote censorship, right?
Okay.
But it's
Right.
not censorship, right? It's parent controls. That's really all
Sure.
it is.
Right. Right.
And they go into this long legal battle that we did not have the money to fight. And so we went and raised money from the crowd to fight the legal battle all the way to the Supreme Court. So it was literally over the course of, I think, 2 weeks, might have been less, I can't remember, but raised millions of dollars to be able to go fight the what we fought, what we thought was in alignment with the law, all the way to the Supreme Court. And in part of that process, um, from the money that was put towards VidAngel, a portion of it was invested into content as well. So we went and
My
bought the legal
gosh.
side. So Dry Bar Comedy. You're familiar with Dry Bar Comedy, probably,
No, I'm
but
not
it's
actually.
got it's got billions of views. It's the biggest stand-up comedy platform in the world,
Oh, okay.
and
Wow. Okay.
comedians would come on and they would perform, and they would we would communicate with them. And when I say we, I mean my brothers, they're also co-founders.
Yeah.
They would communicate with the comedians. This is what the audience filters out, and this is what they don't. And then the comedians would voluntarily change their stand-up set
Uh-huh.
to cater to the audience because they knew, oh, well, they're going to skip the F-bombs, they're going to skip the sexual innuendo and all these things. I'll just do this clean portion of my set.
Oh,
And
how cool.
it was incredible. And it became this thing that was funny for the whole family. Well, fast forward later, the lawsuit continues to be fought and all those kinds of things.
Yeah.
And along comes my brothers get connected with Dallas Jenkins,
Uh-huh.
who is the director of The Chosen,
Yeah.
and they watch his short film, The Shepherd,
Hmm.
and they're just like, okay, this is what we created this thing for, is this type of
Goodness.
content.
Oh,
And
wow.
so we go out and we use The Shepherd basically as an advertisement to
Uh-huh.
raise money for the first season of The Chosen, right?
Yes.
That's that's what we use it for. And my brother said, "Oh, hey, let's crowdfund this thing."
Uh-huh.
And Dallas was like, "Okay, that's kind of stupid. We're never gonna. Maybe we'll make a few $1,000s because everything he had seen from crowdfunding was like the Indiegogo campaigns and
Sure. Yeah. Right.
the Kickstarter stuff. But
Huh?
they set the record for the largest crowdfunded TV show in the history of the world, right? It was something along the lines of like $10 million. and might have even been more, might have been 11 million. But what was so interesting was when that idea for crowdfunding for media content came from when we did the crowdfunding to raise money to fight the legal battle for VidAngel. So I immediately sent an email to my brothers. I was like, "Hey, if we could raise this money to fight a legal battle," I'm like, "Couldn't we do this to like make a movie or something?" And they're like, "Oh yeah, we totally could." And that's kind of where what went into Dry Bar and what went into The Chosen, and later
Yeah.
for my own show for Tuttle Twins,
Yeah.
we did the same thing
Same
again. We
thing.
crowdfunded and we raised the most amount of money ever for a kids TV show.
Uh-huh.
Set a world record for that. We later broke it a little bit later with the Wing Feather Saga. But
Okay.
anyway, which is also on Angel Studios. But yeah, so long story short, VidAngel is the filtering company, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Then the original content was being developed at the same time. And eventually it came to a point where it was like, okay, these two companies,
Mm-hmm.
they it might be troublesome for them to coexist. So it wasn't even two companies, it was one company at the time.
Right. Yeah,
But it's
okay.
like if the filtering really takes off, that could, with all this legal stuff, it could endanger all this original content that's being
So you
developed.
had to
And if
distance.
the original content really takes off, that could maybe even endanger the filtering side. And so
Sure.
ultimately, the two companies were broken apart.
Okay.
VidAngel's now a completely separate company. We have no part in that one at all.
Interesting. Okay.
We're still run by great people, but it is
Yeah.
now a completely separate company, right?
Sure. Okay.
And then the original content side of things became Angel, right?
Yeah.
And then and that's where my show lives.
Mm-hmm.
And gosh, I don't even remember what question you asked, Lauren, to get me onto that,
This
but that's
is
kind of the backstory.
See, to me, this whole story is an illustration of Romans 8:28. The idea that, God takes all things, all these awful things, like this
Yes.
incredible legal struggle, and he brings something so beautiful out of it. The fact that
Yes.
you had not just like the amount of money that you earned then, but like you had this excess that ended up getting funneled, but you also learned a process. And now suddenly you realize that there's this incredible hunger among people all over the place that want this kind of content and they had nowhere to go. So it's just so great. So tell me a little bit about like the what you've learned. I mean, obviously you've learned it based on how much money that you've brought in for the content, but what kind of demand is out there? Is it just a niche? Is there a huge swath of different demographics that are interested in clean content? What is that demand versus what Hollywood is currently producing? I'm not sure how to phrase that question, but
No, yeah, the demand is high. In fact, even back when we were doing the filtering stuff in the early days of VidAngel, we found that
right.
it was almost half of the United States that
Really?
wanted those kind of parental controls. So they wanted that kind of control over their content.
Yeah.
And then what Angel is really going after is the values-based audience.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of them are like regular church-going type people, right?
Sure. Right.
But really, it's people that want to see good morals, good ethics, good values in their content rather than it just being, a celebration of like anti-heroes and just entertainment for entertainment's sake. They want it to be uplifting
Inspired.
and,
Yes.
yeah, inspired. I mean, for lack of a better term, a little bit of what Disney was historically, right?
Right. Yes.
And so that is the angel mission, is to tell stories that amplify light. And it actually is most of the country that wants that kind of content. Now they might say to themselves, "Oh, that's a Christian thing, or that's for religious people," and kind of write some of the stuff off.
Mhm.
But so many of the TV shows and
Uh-huh.
the feature films that
Yeah.
come through Angel don't really fit neatly into those sort of categories of like, oh, this is Christian content, or this is
Exactly.
this
Yeah.
is for people that like go to church.
Right.
It's very much just a good story. I don't know if you've seen the movie Sketch, but that's a really good example.
Yeah,
But
but I've seen.
I use Dry Bar comedy as an example.
Yeah.
It's
Right.
stand-up comedians that
Yep.
are just delivering their
It's
content in a
funny.
way that is
Yeah.
more family friendly. Yeah, funny for
Right.
everyone, right?
Right. Yeah.
And this is a similar type of thing where with the movie Sketch, it's really a movie all about grief. It's about this girl that is drawing these pictures after her mom has passed,
Mm.
these like really kind of nasty little pictures in her notebook, and they end up coming to life and like terrorizing this town. And there's this kind of like fantasy element to it, but
Sure.
really it's about just processing through grief,
Mhm.
and it's really uplifting at the end, even though it has kind of these like horror elements, but really in a more family friendly way.
Sure.
And anyway, it's just a really good example of the kind of content that you can make that doesn't have to necessarily be, oh, this is
All that.
Christian.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right, exactly. So just curious, and I promise I will get back to the Tuttle Twins thing, but that I'm curious to know why, in your opinion, this data is out there, the demand is there. Why
Yeah.
is it that the mainstream isn't catering to that? Because you would think that it's about the money. Like this is a business. Why are they not
Right.
following what the people are demanding and what they've already proven that they'll pay for? What is your theory about that?
I have a couple. One is that Hollywood operates in a bubble. And
Okay.
what I mean by that is they have their kind of their own culture,
Yeah.
and they're surrounded by many more of their type, right?
Sure.
And so I think what they see surrounding them in their lives isn't necessarily what middle America, for example,
Yeah.
sees in their own lives.
Right.
And so they, I think, have created content, A, that like is kind of a reflection of what they're seeing in their lives. And
Yeah.
then B, I also think there's a lot of trying to please their peers,
That
meaning
makes so much sense.
they're
Yes.
trying to impress their friends, they're trying to win awards and those kinds of things. So many of the financial incentives
Mm.
have actually been stripped away because of the contracts that the studio systems did with the creators.
Mm.
So in many of the actors, directors, and producers had contracts that allowed for them to get paid on the back end, royalties and those different kinds of things when the films would do well. Well,
Mm.
what happened is so much of the accounting in Hollywood makes it so the film never quote unquote does well or never becomes profitable.
Interesting. And
And so much of the back end, it's so rare for the actors and the directors and stuff to truly get a back end.
uh-huh.
It's probably only the very tippity top 10% of movies
Uh-huh.
ever. And I mean, I'm just pulling a number out of the air, but
Sure.
it's a very small minority of the movies that
Uh-huh.
ever end up paying the actors on the back end and the
Uh-huh.
creators on the back end, because there's always these clever accounting things to be like, no, we haven't turned a profit yet. Those kinds of things. And so
Yeah.
I think because the financial incentives have not landed or been like, there's been a little bit of overpromise and underdeliver on the back end of the financial side. I think they're incentivized to get their money up front. And then in that case, I think you're even more incentivized to please your peers than you are the customer that you're ultimately trying to serve. But I do think the award shows play into that,
Yeah.
where they get a little bit where the award shows for years haven't really been a reflection of what's happening in the box office,
Right.
right? A lot
Yeah.
of these movies will be things that people have never even heard of,
Right.
and then they're winning like best picture and best director and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That didn't used to be the case in Hollywood, right? It
Right.
used to be that you was really big, well-known movies, very popular movies
Sure.
that
Yeah.
were winning those awards, and now it seems like there's a lot more of they're kind of speaking to themselves rather than
Yeah.
speaking to the majority of who their customer is.
Yeah, that's interesting. So, I mean, it seems like essentially it's a reflection of what's happening in the microcosm with everybody else. We're all in our little silos in social media, right? Where we hear
Yes.
our own
Uh-huh.
ideas reflected back. And it sounds like Hollywood is another example of that, where
I think so.
it's an
I
echo
think
chamber.
that's an element for sure.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Fascinating. So, okay, give us the elevator pitch for the Tuttle Twins. What inspired who wrote the series, first of all? Was that also you guys?
No, so
Okay.
Connor Boyack and Elijah Stanfield
Okay.
are the author and illustrator of the original book series.
Okay.
I've been friends with Connor for a long time, bought the first
Mhm.
book when it came out,
Mhm.
loved it,
Yeah.
wanted it as a resource to teach my own kids. I'm a
Yeah.
father of 7.
Mhm.
And we've also homeschooled and those kinds of things. And
Mhm.
so with Connor, he was actually looking for a resource to teach his own kids. He's got two kids of his own. He went on Amazon to find a resource to find what books would teach kids about principles of freedom and economics. And he just came up really shorthanded. And he's like, well, I guess maybe I'll just write the book myself.
Yeah.
And so he took Frederick Bastiat's The Law and wrote a book called The Law. And it ended up resonating so well with parents like myself and others and selling so well that he was like, well, maybe I turn this into a series. It was never even like an intention of his to like make this whole series, but he starts to turn into a series and write books on things like the golden rule, entrepreneurship, on inflation, all these different kind of economic and freedom-based topics, and rights to life, liberty, property, all those things. And ultimately the series just continues to take off and just sell more and more. And my family bought all the books, and we really enjoyed having them as a homeschool resource. And then it actually got to a point. So you mentioned that I'm co-founder not only of VidAngel and Angel Studios, but Harmon Brothers, which is a advertising marketing agency. We actually brought on Tuttle Twins, the books as a client, and started doing campaigns with them to really help them grow the books to where they were starting to sell tens of thousands of copies. And Connor and Elijah started kicking around the idea of turning it into a TV series. And it was one of my business partners at Harmon Brothers, Benton, who was the CEO. He approached me and said, I think we should be the ones to turn it into the TV series for them. And I was like, I don't want to do that. Like, honestly, so I was over creative at Harmon Brothers, and I had learned storytelling through telling the stories for clients, right? Character development, how to educate people well, how to entertain, all those things I was learning through the campaigns that we were doing with advertising. And I knew I ultimately wanted to do a movie of some kind, but I was like, A, do I want to do a TV show? B, do I want to do animated? And then C, like this political thing, that's the first thing I want to go out the door with? No. But then ultimately I was like, wait a minute. I really want this to exist for my kids. I would have really loved to have this as a kid. If I don't do this, who is going to do it? And when it was like, especially the way I had it in my mind, and I was like, oh, I don't think this gets done unless I do it. And I was like, okay, I have to do it. That's ultimately what it came down to. So we approached Connor, sat down with him, and kind of spelled out a vision for how Tuttle Twins could be kind of a Marvel type brand. Marvel has their cinematic universe, they have their comic books, they have their TV shows and cartoons, they have their toys, and they all have little bits of different flavor, right? But you kind of know generally overall what Marvel's getting at. And a little the same thing with Tuttle Twins. The brand would become this, educational brand for kids for freedom and economics. The TV show would have a little bit of a different flavor than the books. And we spelled that out, and he's like, okay, I can kind of get behind that. And so Connor actually is an executive producer on the show. So he sits down at the beginning of every episode with us, and we nail down what we're going to teach in the episode. And he helps us make sure that message is true to the original book series and true to the principles that the brand stands for. Elijah Stanfield, also the illustrator, he does the same. He's also an executive producer on the show. So they're very integral to the education of the show. And then me and my team, we go off and we try to make it as fun and entertaining as possible, not just for kids, but for adults as well.
Yeah. So I'm just curious, as you were talking about all of this, did he have a publisher that had to sign off on all of this, or was he self-published? How did this happen?
Yeah, he was self-published. He was self-published to begin with, and I'm not sure if he has a publisher, but no, I don't think so. I don't think he goes through an official publisher. I think it's still all he kind of figured out the mechanics of just going direct to places that can publish the books, but that meaning actually manufacture the books to get them out there, but no official like publisher that was going to do his marketing. He's done all that. He's built all that stuff internally. Connor's amazing. He's very much an entrepreneur, a problem solver, and a visionary, and he was able to really kind of create this whole business that's been pretty fantastic.
Yeah, and then he ended up hiring you guys and you took it from there. But that, I mean, not having the,
So he didn't hire us, but we
oh,
partnered
okay.
together.
Partnered. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Tuttle Twins TV show is a separate business
Okay.
from the book company, and we
Ah, all
just
right.
partnered together
Got it.
and we entered a licensing agreement.
For the creative inspiration. Got
Yeah,
it. Okay.
yeah.
Very cool. So, I mean, the goal here is to teach economic principles and what else? Like what are some of the main foundational principles that are the goal that to reach kids with?
Yeah, so much of it are the foundational principles of this country, right?
Mhm.
So rights to individual rights, life, liberty, and property,
Mhm.
things like the golden rule,
Yeah.
really kind of basic moral values that are part of it, of like, don't don't do things to your neighbor that you wouldn't want to
Right.
have them
Yeah, yeah.
do to you.
Sure.
Or, but then getting into the mechanics of economics, like
Yeah.
things like free trade, like supply and demand, where inflation comes from,
Yeah.
even things like civil disobedience
Hmm.
and critical thinking, free speech, freedom
Yeah.
of religion, all of those things we get into with the show. So anything to do with freedom and economics,
Uh-huh.
we touch on that stuff. And so the show has the main characters are a grandma with a time traveling wheelchair that takes
Yeah.
her kids
Love it.
back in time to learn lessons of liberty from major figures of history like Benjamin Franklin and George Washington, Harriet Tubman,
Mhm.
Martin Luther King Jr., on and on. And so it's kind of got these vibes of the Magic School Bus, and a little bit of shows like Phineas and Ferb with things like Gravity Falls, and even The Simpsons mix in, but more family friendly. So
Very cool.
kind of,
Yeah, and all of those principles are things that kids would probably inherently find boring if they were presented in textbook book format. But this way, I'm imagining kids would get really excited about those principles and maybe learn to delve into them a little bit more themselves. Is there uh
Oh, 100%. I think that's the case that even adults find this stuff boring unless you make it entertaining, right?
exactly right for sure.
So, yeah, one of the things that we recognize is these principles are not being taught in the public school system very much anymore.
Right. Hmm.
They're also not being taught in culture. And
Hmm.
so we just were creating a resource to be able to give to parents for them to pass their values on down to their kids.
Hmm.
And we knew that the show, at least the vision I've always had for the show, is that it had to be entertaining enough and interesting enough that kids would choose it as an entertainment option over things like Netflix and Disney Plus and
Right.
TikTok and
Yeah.
so on, that it needed to work as great characters and great story,
Hmm.
and then they're getting a lesson in there as well.
As
So
part
one
of it.
example I always bring up is the original Spider-Man with Tobey Maguire.
Mhm.
With great power comes
Great
great
response.
responsibility, right? Almost everybody can finish that sentence for me.
Sure. Right.
A, because it resonates as truth when you
Yep.
say it, right? And then B, because there's so much great storytelling and character around it that
Hmm.
you remember it. And that's a little bit of what we try to do with the show. When we teach about entrepreneurship, we have a line that is, the entrepreneur makes problems fewer. So
Hmm.
that an
Oh, I like it.
entrepreneur is a problem solver,
Yeah.
right? And then when we teach about inflation, inflation hurts a nation. So we
Uh-huh.
have these different sort of like kind of catchphrases that will
It'll
repeat
stick
in
in
the
your memory.
episodes
Hmm.
to try to help things stick.
Yeah.
And on civil disobedience, sometimes it's okay to civilly disobey, is what we'll say.
Yeah.
Where we use help kids with the critical thinking, and we've always been the object of it has always been a co-viewing experience between the kids and the parents.
So that it can
Meaning,
turn into a dialogue.
yes, yes, absolutely. And it's been so gratifying to see that 80% of our episodes, is over 80%, are being watched by the parents as well.
Hmm.
Now, is it getting watched the second, third, and fourth time? Probably not. But they're
Yeah, yeah.
sitting down with the kids
Sure.
at least and watching it once. And that's so
Yeah.
encouraging, because we really want those dinner table discussions happening We want the critical thinking. We don't just want parents parking their kids in front of the show and just saying, "Oh, just watch it," and turning like their brain off. No, we want them engaged with it. And so
Yeah.
we it's about half the jokes in the show go right over the heads of the 6 to 8 year olds, but are landing squarely in the lap of the 35 to 45 year olds, right?
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
parents. I mean, they're written for kids like of the 90s and those types of things.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
it's been a really fun process because we have to have the show has to work first and foremost. Like for me, I don't just say to myself, "What'll be funny to my kids?" I say, "What's funny to me?"
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
and that's kind of the starting point, and ends up being funny for a lot of other parents and a lot of other kids.
Yeah, that's terrific. So, I just before we talked, I was watching the trailer, the trailer, and also the first episode. So people can watch the first episode for free, right? If they
Oh
haven't seen it
yeah.
before.
In
Okay.
fact, if you download the Angel app, I believe you can watch the first 3 seasons for free.
Oh my goodness, how
It's
many
only
seasons
it's
are there?
there. So we're now in our fourth season.
Nice.
We're
Nice.
now releasing our fourth season. Now you need to be an Angel Guild member in
Mhm.
order to watch the fourth season, the latest
Yeah.
content.
Mhm.
That's a paying member who actually gets to see the content before it ever goes public. Meaning, not just see the episodes when they're released first, but you get to see it before we even finish it,
Yeah.
because the Angel Guild is actually our gatekeeper. They're the ones that decide whether or not the episodes are worth putting on the platform.
Oh, wow. Okay.
My brothers who are executives over at Angel,
Yeah.
they can't even greenlight any TV show or any feature film without approval from the Angel Guild. The
Okay.
Angel Guild has to pass it first and
Yeah.
say, yes, this is a story that amplifies light. And yes, we would be very disappointed if this never, was made public.
On the light of day. Yeah.
And so every single one of our episodes of Tuttle Twins first has to go
Yeah.
through the Angel Guild
Uh-huh.
before it can ever be published. And but yeah, if they download the Angel app on the App Store or Google Play, they can
Yeah.
watch the first 3 seasons. I'm pretty sure it's
Yeah.
for free.
Yeah.
And from there, if you get hooked, then you can pay to
Go
watch
from
more.
there. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I love the checks and balances you guys have going on there, where they've got this totally separate group that can
Yes.
say, is this going to fly?
It's over 1.5 million members now, the Angel
Yeah.
Guild.
Nice.
And it's turning the Hollywood system on its head, meaning the Hollywood system is a handful of executives
Yeah.
are the ones that make the choices on whether or not, we're going to spend $100 million to make this film, or we're going to spend, $50 million to produce this TV series, whatever it is.
Yeah.
That's what's happening. And instead, it's our audience. Our audience gets to decide whether or not something is going to be an angel film or TV show. That's
Yeah.
what it is. We're accountable to the end customer.
Yeah, fantastic. And so just because I have you here and you're a part of Angel Studios, I have to ask you a little bit about The Sound of Freedom. Like that was such a huge, tremendous film, like the response to that. Did anybody anticipate that it was going to be that big?
No,
So,
no, not in our wildest dreams.
right. So,
No, I think we understood when watching the film. I think we knew it had the potential to be successful. I don't think any of us would have ever believed that it was going to be a grand slam like it was, especially in the box office. And just the word of mouth that was driven by it. It was so groundbreaking in the way it approached a subject that a lot of people just don't talk about.
right. Yeah.
And and then obviously Alejandro Monteverde, the director, he's just a very skilled. He's a very very skilled creative, just a great storyteller, and so he did a really good job of really bringing the emotion into that and paying that story off very well. And
Yeah.
so none of us knew it was going to be that big.
Yeah. But I think so much of it is just that you are playing to what your audience wants, and there's crowdfunding that's part of it, and then there's the gatekeepers that are the audience. So you've got them in the loop every step of the way. That's awesome. What have I not asked you that you want to make sure you leave with our audience?
Oh, that is a great question. Probably my biggest inspiration, I think, for doing Tuttle Twins
Mm-hmm.
is I would love it if Tuttle Twins inspired other kids, other parents going forward to go and create their own Tuttle Twins. By that, I don't mean
Yeah.
maybe necessarily another TV show. It could be that.
Right.
But what can they do to be like, you know what, this doesn't exist in the world and
Yeah.
it needs to exist. And I want it for myself, or I want it for my family.
Right.
And I'm going to go out there and create it. That would be the ultimate thing. If like it inspires the next generation of entrepreneurs and problem solvers and creatives and storytellers,
Yeah.
that would be that would be the best impact I think that the show could have. Like, yes, it's touching the lives of millions with the teaching and stuff, but man, if it could inspire more people to dive in there, throw their hat in the ring, and go and create something great, I would
Right.
love that.
Let's change the culture. Absolutely. Great.
Hmm.
So where can people go to learn more about you and about Tuttle Twins?
Go to angel.com
Yep.
slash Tuttle Twins, Tuttle twins.
Hmm.
And that'll take you right to the spot, or you can just look the Angel app up on the App Store, download it for free, and start watching some content.
Fantastic. Awesome. Well, I will link to that in the show notes. And thank you so much for your time, Daniel. This has been really fun chat. Thank
Thank you for having me.
you.